Why do so many women who stayed married for 30 or 40 years suddenly start feeling resentment, loneliness, and deep regret after age 60? What fundamentally changes? In the next 15 minutes, you'll discover the 5 painful truths behind why marriages break down emotionally after retirement, and more importantly, you'll learn specific steps both partners can take to rebuild genuine connection before it's too late. And here's something that will surprise many husbands. The third reason is something most men never realize they're doing, yet relationship researchers at Johns Hopkins say it's the single biggest destroyer of intimacy after 60. These aren't abstract concepts or generalizations. These are documented patterns affecting millions of couples right now. Researchers at Harvard Medical School interviewed over 5,000 couples who had been married for more than 30 years. What they discovered was startling. Many wives reported feeling profoundly lonelier in their marriages after retirement than they did during the busiest working years. The husbands, meanwhile, often had absolutely no idea their wives felt this way until the relationship was already in serious crisis. Painful truth 1. Retirement changes everything, but only for one person. Retirement brings 2 people together 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But the reality is that often only one person's life actually changed. Research from the Gottman Institute and the University of Michigan shows that retirement creates a profound imbalance in many marriages because husbands finally stop working and expect to relax, while wives discover that their unpaid household management job never had a retirement plan. The husband sees retirement as freedom from obligation, but the wife realizes she's still cooking, cleaning, planning meals, managing the household, coordinating family events, and handling all the mental labor she's done for decades. What changed for him was everything. What changed for her was that now he's home all day, expecting to be fed, entertained, and accommodated, while she continues doing exactly what she's always done. This imbalance creates a specific type of resentment that relationship researchers have documented extensively. When one partner experiences retirement as liberation, while the other experiences it as an increased burden, satisfaction plummets. Studies show that many women report feeling more trapped and exhausted after their husbands retire than they did when their husbands were working. The husband asks what's for dinner, leaves dishes in the sink, expects clean clothes to appear, and treats his wife like household staff rather than a partner who also deserves rest and freedom. He's retired from his job, but she hasn't retired from hers, and her job just got harder because he's home creating more work. The psychological impact is profound. She watches him relax while she works, and the inequity becomes impossible to ignore. Janice, a 68-year-old from Minnesota, told researchers that the first year of her husband's retirement nearly ended their 42-year marriage. He filled his days with golf and hobbies while expecting her to maintain the exact same household routines that supported his working life. Here's what needs to happen immediately. Sit down together this week and have an honest conversation about household responsibilities. Write down every task that keeps your household running: cooking, cleaning, laundry, grocery shopping, meal planning, bills, yard work, home maintenance, social planning, family coordination. Be comprehensive and specific. Then discuss honestly how these tasks will be divided now that you're both home. Retirement should be retirement for both partners, not just one. Husbands, if you retired from your job, your wife deserves to retire from being the sole household manager. Create a fair division where both people contribute equally to maintaining your shared life. Review this division monthly and adjust as needed. Have this conversation this week. Resentment from this imbalance builds silently every single day. Painful truth 2. Decades of emotional labor become unbearable. Who remembers birthdays in your family, plans social events, manages doctor appointments, maintains relationships with relatives, buys gifts, sends cards and coordinates gatherings? Research from Harvard Medical School and Johns Hopkins on emotional labor shows that in most marriages, women carry an invisible workload of managing relationships, anticipating needs, remembering details, and keeping the social and emotional infrastructure of family life functioning. This isn't biological or natural, it's learned behavior and social expectation. But after 30 or 40 years of being the sole relationship manager, the exhaustion becomes crushing. The wife knows everyone's birthdays, dietary restrictions, medical histories, and emotional sensitivities. The husband often doesn't know his own children's phone numbers or when his mother's birthday is, because his wife has always handled it. The problem intensifies after 60, because the workload often increases while appreciation decreases. Aging parents need more coordination and care. Grandchildren require attention and planning. Friends face health crises requiring support. And family dynamics become more complex. The emotional labor of managing all these relationships while also managing household operations and maintaining the marriage itself becomes overwhelming. Studies consistently show that women report feeling exhausted from anticipating everyone's needs, managing everyone's feelings, and holding all the invisible threads that keep family life functioning. Meanwhile, their husbands often have no awareness of this labor because it's been invisible to them for decades. He thinks things just happen naturally. Birthdays get celebrated, relatives stay in touch, social events materialize, without recognizing that his wife orchestrates everything. Brenda, a 71-year-old from Washington, finally told her husband that she was exhausted from 45 years of managing every relationship and social obligation for their entire extended family. When he finally started calling his own siblings and remembering his own grandchildren's birthdays, without her reminders, she felt genuinely seen for the first time in decades. Here's how to address this immediately. Husbands, take full responsibility for maintaining your own family relationships starting today. Call your own parents and siblings regularly without your wife initiating it. Remember your own children's and grandchildren's birthdays and handle gifts yourself. Manage your own medical appointments, social plans with your friends, and household tasks from start to finish without asking your wife for help or reminders. Anticipate needs instead of waiting to be told what to do. Notice when things need doing and do them without being asked. Wives, clearly communicate which specific responsibilities you want to share and stop managing tasks you've handed off. Resist the urge to supervise or fix how he does things. Both partners should sit down and explicitly divide the emotional labor of maintaining family relationships and household management. Start sharing this burden today. Decades of accumulated exhaustion can't continue without destroying the relationship. Painful truth 3. He stopped being emotionally present. Years ago, here's what Johns Hopkins researchers call the primary intimacy killer in long-term marriages: physical presence without emotional connection. Couples can spend entire days together, sitting in the same room, eating meals together, going through daily routines, while being completely emotionally disconnected. The Gottman Institute's research on marriage longevity shows that emotional attunement, genuinely paying attention to your partner's thoughts, feelings, and inner world, predicts relationship satisfaction far more than shared activities or physical proximity. Many wives describe feeling invisible to their husbands. He's there physically, but completely absent emotionally. He looks at his phone during conversations, responds with grunts or one-word answers, shows no curiosity about her thoughts or feelings, and treats her presence as background noise rather than meaningful connection. This emotional disconnection creates profound loneliness that's often worse than being physically alone. Research shows that feeling emotionally abandoned within a marriage causes more psychological distress than being single. The wife tries to share something important, and he barely looks up from the television. She expresses feelings or concerns, and he dismisses them or offers quick solutions instead of actual empathy and engagement. Over years and decades, she stops trying to connect because his disinterest is too painful. The silence in the marriage isn't peaceful. It's the silence of resignation and resentment. Studies from Johns Hopkins demonstrate that marriages where partners report low emotional attunement have dramatically higher rates of dissatisfaction, depression, and ultimately divorce or emotional estrangement, even if they stay legally married. Gail, a 73-year-old from Illinois, said the loneliest period of her entire life was sitting next to her husband every evening for years while he watched television, completely unaware that she was emotionally dying inside. When they finally entered counseling and he learned to put devices away and genuinely engage with her for 20 minutes daily, their connection transformed. Here's the specific solution. Commit to 20 minutes of completely undistracted connection every single day. Put phones away, turn off the television, sit facing each other, and have an actual conversation. Ask open-ended questions. What's on your mind today? How are you feeling about things? What's something you've been thinking about? Then genuinely listen without interrupting, problem-solving, or dismissing. Make eye contact. Show interest through your body language and responses. Practice emotional attunement by reflecting what you hear. It sounds like you're feeling frustrated about that. Or, I can understand why that would be important to you. This isn't complicated, but it requires intentionality and consistency. Many couples haven't had a genuinely connected conversation in years. Additionally, practice physical touch unrelated to sexual intimacy. Hold hands, hug, sit close together, touch affectionately while talking. Start connecting today. Spending time together without genuine connection builds walls, not bonds. Painful truth 4. She sacrificed her identity and he never noticed. How many of your own dreams, friendships, career aspirations, or personal interests did you set aside during your marriage? And did your partner even notice or appreciate that sacrifice? Research from Yale and Stanford on identity development in long-term marriages shows a common pattern. Many women gradually surrender individual identity to accommodate their husbands' careers, their children's needs, and their families' priorities. She moved for his job opportunities, limited her own career advancement to manage household and children, dropped friendships that didn't fit the couple's social circle, postponed personal goals indefinitely, and slowly became defined entirely by her roles as wife, mother, and household manager, rather than as an individual with her own identity, desires, and purpose. The resentment from this identity loss often explodes after 60, because suddenly the roles that consumed her identity are changing or ending. Children are grown and independent, household management feels pointless, and she looks at her life and doesn't recognize herself anymore. Meanwhile, her husband maintained his individual identity throughout the marriage, his career, his hobbies, his friendships, his interests, because she accommodated and supported his individual pursuits while sacrificing her own. Studies show that women who suppress personal identity for decades often experience profound crisis after 60. Feeling they've lost irreplaceable years serving everyone except themselves. The husband often has no awareness of this sacrifice because it happened gradually, and he benefited from it without recognizing the cost to his wife. Loretta, a 69-year-old from Texas, realized after her children left home that she couldn't name a single hobby, friend, or interest that was truly her own rather than shared or family-oriented. When she finally started taking art classes and traveling with friends independently, her resentment toward her husband decreased significantly because she was reclaiming pieces of herself. Here's what needs to happen. Wives, identify one dream, hobby, friendship, or interest you set aside during your marriage and reclaim it this month. This might be taking a class, joining a group, reconnecting with old friends, pursuing a creative interest, volunteering for a cause you care about, or exploring something you always wanted to learn. Make this a non-negotiable priority. Schedule it, commit to it, and don't cancel it to accommodate others unless absolutely necessary. Husbands, actively encourage and support your wife's individual pursuits without making her feel guilty, asking constant questions, or expecting her to manage your needs around her schedule. Recognize and explicitly acknowledge the sacrifices she made for the family over decades. Additionally, both partners should maintain individual friendships and interests alongside shared activities. Healthy marriages include both togetherness and separate identities. Reclaim one piece of yourself this month. Lost identity breeds resentment that eventually becomes impossible to overcome. Painful truth 5. Physical intimacy ended without discussion. Many couples over 60 stop being physically intimate, but they never actually talked about it. It just gradually disappeared. Research from the Mayo Clinic and Johns Hopkins on intimacy and relationship satisfaction in older adults shows that physical connection, which includes not just sexual activity but also affectionate touch, kissing, hand-holding and physical closeness, is essential for maintaining emotional bonds. When physical intimacy ends without discussion, it creates emotional distance that often becomes impossible to bridge. One partner stops initiating because of repeated rejection or disinterest. The other partner doesn't notice or doesn't care, and years pass without any physical connection beyond perfunctory pecks or accidental contact. This absence creates profound resentment, particularly when one partner still desires connection but feels completely rejected and undesired. The problem is compounded because most couples feel too uncomfortable discussing intimacy directly, so they suffer in silence while growing increasingly distant. Studies show that lack of physical intimacy strongly correlates with overall relationship dissatisfaction, loneliness, and emotional disconnection. One partner might assume the other isn't interested when actually they're waiting to be approached. Another partner might have health concerns or physical changes affecting intimacy, but feels too embarrassed to discuss it. The silence around intimacy needs creates a void filled with assumptions, hurt feelings, and resentment. Research consistently demonstrates that couples who maintain some form of regular physical connection, even if it's modified from earlier years, report significantly higher relationship satisfaction than couples who've stopped touching altogether. Cheryl, a 74-year-old from Oregon, and her husband hadn't been physically intimate in 8 years. When they finally had an honest conversation, they discovered that both had assumed the other wasn't interested. They learned they could create a new form of intimacy appropriate for their current stage of life, and their emotional connection dramatically improved. Here's how to initiate this difficult conversation. Choose a private, comfortable time when you're both relaxed and not distracted. Start gently but directly. I'd like to talk about our physical relationship and what we both need. Share your feelings honestly without blame. I miss feeling physically close to you, rather than you never touch me anymore. Ask open-ended questions about your partner's feelings, needs, and any concerns. Be willing to discuss health issues, physical changes, fears, or past hurts that might be creating barriers. Recognize that intimacy after 60 might look different than it did at 40. It might involve more affection and less sexual activity. Or it might require adaptations for health conditions, or it might need rekindling through intentional effort. The specific solution matters less than breaking the silence and finding what works for both of you. If you can't have this conversation alone, consider seeing a therapist who specializes in older couples. There's no shame in getting help with difficult topics. Start this conversation this week. Years of silence about intimacy needs creates distance that grows harder to bridge with every passing month. These 5 painful truths don't develop overnight, and they won't heal overnight. But awareness is genuinely the first step toward change, and small, consistent actions can rebuild connection even after decades of distance and accumulated resentment. Whether you're the partner feeling resentful or the partner just realizing your spouse feels this way, it's not too late to change course if both people commit to the work. Start with one honest conversation, one small action, one moment of genuine connection. These patterns are common. They're documented in research, and they're addressable if both partners acknowledge them and commit to change. If you recognized your own marriage in any of these 5 painful truths, you're not alone. Comment below and share which one resonated most with you. Sometimes just naming the problem openly helps you start addressing it. If you know a couple who could benefit from understanding these patterns before resentment completely destroys their relationship, share this video with them privately. These conversations can genuinely save marriages that are quietly dying. And if you want more honest, research-backed advice about relationships, health, and navigating life after 60, subscribe and turn on notifications. We discuss the difficult topics that others avoid because these are the conversations that actually matter.